being intentional and setting it as a priority has allowed me to continue to have a strong, consistent, follow through. Believe it or not, this is the third time I've gained and lost the same 75 pounds. I've never been able to have this much consistency. I've never been consistent for 12 months. I'd say the number one thing for me is the intermittent fasting, having that framework where I know that I've got at least a plan that says if I do this, I'm not going to be able to overconsume calories in one meal.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. Super excited to have you here. If you are joining us live, I am glad to have you at another episode of the Progress Over Perfection podcast, where we talk to real people about real things involving weight loss, nutrition, fitness, and mindset. I'm your host, Ryan Johnson, and I'm super excited to bring you today's episode. We are going to be talking with somebody that has lost over 77 pounds and has kept it off, absolutely adopted the slow and steady mindset. Super excited to talk with him today, hear his story, and hopefully there is something you can take away from that. Now, before we get into that, one of the things I do want to share with you a little bit is something I was thinking about this week, and that is the idea of showing discipline at the grocery store and what it means to decide on which foods you will and won't bring into your house. So really, the thing that I want to share is just from a personal experience that I had this last week. And I have now been intermittent fasting for 4 years. I have lost about 50 pounds and maintained that weight loss for the last 3 years. And there are still things that I struggle with. And this is something that I was struggling with this week. And that is, there are still foods that I can't have in the house, just because for me, it is something that it's harder for me to portion how much I'm eating, and I'm eating too much. Now, the thing that I'm thinking about specifically is we have this trail mix from Target. It's called Peanut Butter Monster. It is absolutely incredible. If you've never had it, do yourself a favor and don't try it because it's that good. But that is a food that I know if I want to have it, I'm going to be intentional and I'm going to buy it and I'm going to bring it home. And if I eat more of it, I show myself a little bit of forgiveness. That's okay. But it's not something that I keep in the house all the time because I would overeat it over a long period of time. Now, there are some foods that I shouldn't eat in excess that we're fine to have in our cabinets. For me, that's like Fritos. That is a food that I love to eat with chili. And it's absolutely something that I shouldn't eat a lot of, but I am able to have a few servings and no more, and I can keep the bag in the pantry for 3 weeks and I won't finish it off. Whereas the Peanut Butter Monster, and that may be different for you, if you have something that you can't keep in the house, where I want you to show a little bit of discipline, and the thing to think about is understanding that it is okay to not bring those home. Like, make the decision at the grocery store, make it easy on yourself there. I think one of the things that I got caught up in was this idea that I had to show restraint in my house, and that's not necessarily the case either. I absolutely do show restraint and I do show discipline, but I'm going to choose to do it at the grocery store instead of putting all of this stress on myself to do it at the house and walk by the pantry every day and always tell myself, you can't have Peanut Butter Monster, you can't have Peanut Butter Monster, you can't have Peanut Butter Monster. I would rather tell myself no one time than have to tell myself no again and again and again. So again, something that was on my mind this week and just wanted to share it with you all. If you can resonate with that, be sure to let me know. Drop a comment below this video. And also, if you are watching this on YouTube, be sure to subscribe to the channel so you get notifications when we go live. And if you are listening to this on your podcasts, wherever you listen to podcasts, be sure to follow us there and let us know. Be sure to rate and review the podcast. Let us know what you think. Now, I am super excited to bring on the guest of today's show. I'm going to be talking with somebody who has an incredible story to tell. I'm excited to bring him on and talk with him a little bit. He's lost 77 pounds and has been consistent, kept it off. And I'm excited to share his story. Matt, I'm going to be talking with today, is a former coaching client of mine, worked together for about 3 months. And he not only had a lot of success in losing the weight, but the thing that I'm most excited to talk about is it's now been a while since we have worked together, is he's doing the most important part, which is sustaining his success. So Matt, welcome to the show. Man, I'm excited to have you on to talk with you. Kind of like we talked a little bit about before recording. Like, I'm just excited. Really, you're the star, man. I want the people to hear a little bit about your story because I think it's good, and hopefully there are some people out there that can kind of identify with not only where you are, but maybe where you were. So, thanks for being on today, man. Well, good stuff. So I guess, we'll start a little bit at the beginning. Just give us like a high level overview of kind of where your weight has gone. And I say this all the time. The scale's not the only way that we measure progress, but it's one of the ways that we measure progress. But give us a little story on, give us an overview of your weight loss story.
So I was in a position where I started to gain a lot of weight just with my career. I had taken a position where I was on the road. I was driving in between different store locations that I was supporting. And so I would spend, some days 4 to 5 hours in the car, driving from location to location and just making really poor eating decisions. I would stop for fast food for lunch. If I was at the gas, it was just not doing a good job with making good decisions on what I was eating when I was on the road. And then I'd come back home after working all day and I'd just be exhausted and I was not really doing any physical activity. So it really got to a point where I got I was up to, a lot of weight and I was 270 pounds and I got to a point where enough was enough and really made a lot of, decisions to change, what I eat, when I eat, the amount of daily activity that I'm doing. And so that was a lot of things that, had to go into being changed was one, not just, changing, one input, but there was a lot of inputs that I had to modify and we didn't do them all at once, but we stacked them and they certainly had a lot of snowball effect as we stacked them. So.
No, I love that. And I think, again, the idea of doing one thing at a time, there's absolutely power in that. But talk to me a little bit about, so man, again, you've had great success and great success maintaining and sustaining. Talk to me a little bit about your thoughts about intermittent fasting kind of before you started doing that. What were your thoughts going in? What did you learn? We'll kind of start there.
Yeah. So for me, it's been, I've been able to keep my weight loss off now for a year. I haven't lost more weight. I've just been very consistent. I've been able to keep my weight at the exact same point for 12 months now. It's the first time I've ever done that. And I have been very consistent with intermittent fasting. I actually really enjoy it because I actually feel like if I go on vacation and I eat lunch, like on a special occasion, my body doesn't seem like it responds as well to it. And I feel like I'm almost like lethargic. And so for me, I love having the kind of the framework of intermittent fasting. And what I do is I do like really almost 20 hours of fasting. So I do kind of one meal a day. I try not to eat until about 6 o'clock at night. And then I have kind of like a 3 hour, maybe 3.5 hour eating window. And what's nice about that for me is I don't have to restrict, I don't at this point really count calories and I don't have a heavy restriction on, what I can and can't eat. I'm still mindful about trying to get enough protein in because I think it's important to prioritize protein. But at this point, I don't have to sit and really be super thoughtful about, should I have this or shouldn't I have that? Because I do a good, workout in the morning and I, am really faithful about, being consistent about one meal a day. It gives me a lot of freedom now to really enjoy myself. And so it doesn't feel limiting. I really like that freedom I have with it.
No, I love that. And I think that is one of the things that you find, especially once you've been fasting for a month or two. One of the things that I think that naturally comes with that is you build up a little bit of an intuition around your food and you make better food choices just because there is that idea of, I'm only going to eat a few things today. I'm going to make them worthwhile. One of the things that I'll point to all the time is Doritos. I just don't eat Doritos that much anymore. I used to eat it all the time at my heaviest, and now it's like, is it really worth it? And the answer is no. And it's because I am more mindful about what I am eating. So I absolutely get that. So talk to me a little bit about what were some of the things that you feel talking about, like stair stepping and building a habit at a time, where like how was this different from things that you have done in the past? Like what's been the biggest difference?
Yeah, I felt like it actually started a little slow, right? Because we started with just changing my eating window was the kind of the first thing that we worked on, and then once we had that, we started thinking about hydration, and started thinking about what we're fueling our body with, and started tracking what calories were we consuming, and what were the macros, and then just slowly optimizing it week by week, slowly optimizing it. And so I felt like it wasn't like we did five things at once. We did one thing at once, and then we just optimized and just kept ratcheting it up week over week. But it just had a bit of it gained momentum, and as we gained momentum, it kept building off of each other. So I think that was really important. The other thing that was really important for me is my wife got me about maybe a month into our journey, is she got me for Father's Day last year an Apple Watch. And that was great because I was able to start like tracking my steps. So I kind of made it a game. I'm like, I want to get more the next day than I got the day before. And even if it was 100 steps more than I got the next day, it was really impactful for me because now it was like a game. I had it on my wrist. I could track what I was doing. So I was just kept wanting to do like a little bit more. Like just my whole mindset was like, let me just do a little bit more, just a little bit more. And that stacked on top of each other incrementally. And so that was really helpful for me to have the optics of having, pedometer on my wrist that I could just be mindful of. And I would just take an opportunity. Let's say I got a phone call in the middle of the day, and I would step out instead of just like sitting on a chair taking the phone call. Like, hey, let me just take this phone call. Let me just walk for 5 or 10 minutes, and just that intentionality of being intentional about that just allowed me to really start to gain momentum.
No, for sure. I love that. And I think one of the things that, like, when we talk about like stair stepping and doing a thing at a time, is it is kind of like a snowball, right? Like, if it starts small, but it doesn't stop, it can grow really big. And this is a question that I don't know the answer to. So I'm interested to hear kind of your take on it. You gave kind of a clear picture of where you were when you started, busy with work, traveling around, not a lot of energy to do things, making poor food choices. And I think a lot of people feel like they are so busy and overwhelmed with their lives, thinking about starting a weight loss journey is like, I don't have room to do that. Can you talk about where you are now with your work and everything? Are you as busy, and how has figuring out how to do it through a busy season, how has that affected kind of where you're at now? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, for me, it's just really about, having a commitment. And I'm very busy. I've got a lot of commitments, both with my family and my professional commitments. And my geography has actually expanded, but I prioritize it. So I get up at 4:30. I do 8 miles in the morning now. I had to work my way up to that. There's no way I could do that at the beginning, but that's where I'm at consistently 7 days a week. And I even when I have to travel, a lot of times I'll think about, okay, if I have an early morning meeting that's 2 hours away and it's at 8 o'clock, I might get a hotel the night before instead of driving early in the morning. That way I can stay over the night before and still prioritize to get up early to do my workout So like I'm very thoughtful about what do I have to change to make it a priority, so that way I don't have an excuse not to check the box that day. And even now, like when I'm intermittent fast, a lot of times I've been invited. Hey, I've got a business lunch to attend. I'll say, hey, how about we meet for coffee? And I'll switch the meeting to let's grab a coffee, and I can have a black coffee, in a bottle of water. So just being intentional and setting it as a priority has allowed me to continue to have a strong, consistent, follow through on things that are important to me, that I know that will keep the framework of keeping the weight off. Because believe it or not, this is the third time I've gained and lost the same 75 pounds.
Hmm.
But I've never been able to have this much consistency. I've never been consistent for 12 months. And I'd say the number one thing for me is the intermittent fasting, having that framework where I know that I've got at least a plan that says if I do this, I'm not going to be able to over consume calories in one meal. If you're eating one meal a day, and if you're making a reasonable eating decision, it's almost impossible to overconsume enough calories in that one meal for it to throw you off plan. So for me, it just gives me freedom now to be able to go to a lot of different restaurants. I probably enjoy, eating out probably a lot. And but with that, it gives me a lot of freedom to just go enjoy it. So
No, I love that. So one final question before we go, and that is, and I absolutely get that about like having the food freedom, because different things for different people. I am not the kind of person that am going to eat extremely clean for every meal. I can't be consistent with that. Can I be consistent with my meal timing? Yes. So I totally get that. But if you had to give a little bit of advice to your former self on where to start, and I'm asking to your former self, but for those that are listening now that were kind of where you were, where would you tell people to start, or what bit of advice do you have for yourself, 18 months ago?
yeah, well, I think the best decision I made was to have someone hold me accountable. And that's where I got into your training program. Whether that's with you or somebody else, I read a great book. It's called Who Not How, and it said, instead of figuring out how to do something, find the person that is already an expert in it and hitch your wagon to them, because you can go further, farther, and faster. And I think you really want to go along that weight loss journey and that health journey with someone that's got a proven plan. So whether it's with you or someone else that they feel like they identify with, I think the best thing that I did was to find someone to go along the journey with me, to show me, how to progress through it, but also the accountability. There was a couple of times where I remember saying, hey, I'm struggling with hydration, or I hit a plateau a couple of times where, you know, I didn't see forward movement that was very positive by a week, or, week to week basis as we measured it. And just having someone to say, hey, that's normal. You're on the right track. Here's what to focus on, and to help you get through that, for me, was really important.
Well, good stuff, man. Well, again, thank you so much. I'm super glad to talk with you today, kind of share some of your story. Somebody that, again, anytime you shoot me a text with an update, like, it makes my day, makes my week. So super glad to talk with you today. Getting into your questions, we have our first question coming in from Laura, and she said, I started my fasting journey today, and then you are on. That is so cool. Well, Laura, thank you so much for joining us today. Super excited to cheer you on as you are starting your own journey. I think it's neat to see somebody that has kind of a little ways into their. Hopefully that is encouraging to you. And I just want to tell you, no matter what happens, just stay committed to moving forward a little bit at a time, and you will absolutely get there in your own time. All right, Anthony coming over and says, love watching your videos, Ryan. Do you ever think about vlogging more? So I get this question occasionally, and the reality is I absolutely do plan on vlogging more. I'm kind of going through, we are on summer break right now, so I'm home with the girls. That absolutely kind of dictates my time a little bit. But as they get back into school, my plan is to increase the amount of vlogging and get back on that. Right now, the priority is the shorts and the podcast. Fallen Sun asks, how are you determining which type of IF style you do for the day? OMAD, 16-8, et cetera. That's a great question. And that is one that I kind of look at on probably about a 3 to 4 day time horizon, meaning depending on what we have going on meal wise, I will make those decisions factoring in a few things. One of the things that I'm going to factor in is how frequently I'm doing OMAD and what those meals look like, meaning like Matt said, when him and I talked, like one of the things that has helped me not only to lose the weight, but to sustain it and to support what I do in my workouts is to get sufficient protein in. I do try to get in between, about an average 180 grams of protein. And if I do one meal a day and it's a pasta heavy meal and I know I'm not getting a lot of protein, I know that I can't have too many OMADs like that stacked up. So I look at what I've done and what I plan on doing, what the meal plan is, and I may fit in some longer eating windows so that I can fit in sufficient protein. So that's one thing that I'm looking at. Another thing is like special events or things like that. If I'm going to have a meal that is going to be more, calorie dense, then I may do one meal to be able to account for it. Again, like Matt said, it kind of takes some of that burden off of, am I going to overeat or not? Most of the time, unless you go crazy for OMAD, you're not going to overeat.
We have a follow-up question too. Ryan, where did you do those or get those flavored ice cubes that you're putting in the Premier Protein in that ad?
Oh, so that is a concoction of Carrie. She started doing that. She'll go back and forth. I think our coffee tastes change, but she was doing cold brew. And then in order to not have her cold brew coffee be watered down, she just froze cold brew coffee in the silicone ice cube trays. But no, that's definitely a hack if you want cold coffee but don't want it watered down. Jason asks, what are your thoughts and your experience on doing sporadic 48 or 72-hour fasts? Seem to be picking up popularity in the IF space. So this is absolutely something that does have a lot of traction in the intermittent fasting space, is doing prolonged or extended fasting. So I'm going to give you two things. I'm going to kind of give you kind of the prevailing thoughts, and then I'm going to tell you what I do. So the prevailing thoughts on 48 to 72-hour fasts is there are some health benefits, some cognitive benefits and things that are associated with doing prolonged fasts. Now, I'm going to say this like I say with a lot of my stuff, I'm not a medically trained professional. I give a lot of mindset guidance advice. If you're struggling with like yo-yo dieting and like some of the mindset things, that's where I live. I don't necessarily get into the science of it, but there is basis for some health and cognitive benefits for 48 to 72-hour fast. Now, typically, if you are going to do those, your frequency on those should be much lower than weekly, right? So maybe a quarterly 48-hour fast and either a semi-annual or an annual 72-hour fast. That's not something that you should do. And it's not something that typically you do for the sake of weight loss. That's where you could be kind of trending into a territory of, potential eating disorders, things like that. Like, you don't do prolonged fast to lose weight. You do prolonged fast for some of the health and cognitive benefits. So there are benefits to it. I haven't done them, going to the second part, because I do have a 7 and a 10-year-old daughter, and I try to model good behavior. So I don't want them like seeing me not eat for 3 days at a time and them associate that with weight loss. That's where you kind of get into some of that eating disorder type space. And it's something, I am not the best parent, but I do try to be mindful of that. I try to model good behavior. So that is the reason why I personally don't do prolonged fasting. I can't believe you went live when I'm about to exercise. Sorry about that. Comment coming in. Hopefully you have a good session. And when you watch or listen to this, when it comes out on the podcast, I hope you enjoy it and exercise as well. For those that are interested in a little bit of coaching and support, kind of like Matt talked about at the end of our talk, and again, did not tell him to say that, but because he did, if you are interested in coaching, currently I only do one-on-one coaching, me and my assistant coach, Mike. So I'm limited in the number of spots that I have. but send me an email to ifwithryan@gmail.com. Put coaching in the subject line. I've got a few spots available now. I only do one-on-one because I really do believe the real key to sustainability is finding a plan that's going to suit your life. Everybody lives a different life. So if you need a little bit of accountability, if following a cookie cutter plan isn't working for you, if you're looking to lose more than 25 pounds or more than 20 pounds and over 25 years old, shoot me an email to ifwithryan@gmail.com and put coaching in the subject line. So again, super excited to have you listen in to today's episode. Very glad to talk with Mike and hear a little bit about his story and just finding what works for you, and just the idea that he talked about doing a little bit at a time, but letting momentum build so that once you get rolling, you kind of never go back. Don't try to do everything at once. You absolutely can change your life, but my suggestion is you don't try to do it all overnight. Do a little bit at a time. 2 steps forward and 1 step back is still 1 step forward. Don't do it all today. Remember, we're not looking to lose weight fast. We're looking to lose weight forever. Thanks again, and I will catch you in the next episode.